This complete nightmare is a Vivaro van that I won at auction for just £325. And if you couldn't tell, I'm in the middle of rebuilding it, a job I wish I hadn't started. It will leak oil. Ah! I have already spent way too much money, time and effort just to get to this stage. Check out some of the parts I've had to buy. And a load of you are thinking, why on earth would you even bother rebuilding a van like this? They're of no particular historical significance. There's no cult following. There's also loads of these things for sale in good working condition for quite cheap. I'll tell you why I'm rebuilding it. I've been forced to. You see, I've been in need of a van for a while now, and I found this gem on Copart back in the summer of 2024. I was the only bidder and I managed to win it for just £325. With crazy Copart fees and delivery, I actually ended up paying about £650 all said and done. It was a gamble, a non-salvage van that does not run. Maybe it just needed a new battery. It needed a new engine. So the gamble didn't pay off, and in the worst way imaginable. It turns out that the engine that was in here originally had suffered oil starvation and seized, causing catastrophic damage. I made a video at the time tearing the engine down into pieces to investigate, and when I was done, I put all the pieces in the back of the van and parked it outside my workshop, where it has sat ever since, collecting mould, dirt and leaves. So why not just scrap it? Well, if you're new here, you need to know that scrapping vehicles is something I don't do, which is confirmed by my channel banner. Okay, so just sell the van then. You think I didn't try selling this van? Oh boy, I tried. Nobody, and I do mean nobody, wanted it. I had this up for sale on the marketplace and the eBay for 3 months for £150, and I didn't get a single message. I mean, I don't fully understand it, because surely these wheels alone are worth £150. Nobody wanted this van, and so the only option is to rebuild it. And that is a journey that started a couple of days ago, where I made a horrible, terrible, inconvenient realisation. So I removed that engine months and months ago, and I didn't think I was ever going to put another one back in here. When I removed it, I did some really terrible things, including, but not limited to, cutting cables. I didn't label any of these connectors. There are random brackets like this one and this one laying around that I simply cannot remember what they're for. I've got random bolts knocking around. This is going to be a nightmare. So we need a new engine. Luckily, I found this on eBay yesterday, and I messaged the seller and I said, will you take the £575 that you've got as your starting bid? And he said yes. So he's ended the auction, and I now need to go and get it. So I hired a van, which has a certain irony to it, and went to collect the engine. I was back in a flash, unloaded it, ready for the next dose of stupidity. Okay, so do you think I should have rotated this engine before actually purchasing it? My stupidity knows absolutely no bounds. Why do I do silly things like that? Please, please, please. Please rotate. Ah, lovely. That's a good start. I'm just gonna do that very gently, because there is a little notice on top there that says no oil. So someone please remind me that says no oil when we come to put this back in the van. And I've got to say, this has got to be the cleanest removal of an engine I have ever seen. So usually, if you buy a second-hand engine, it's quite often from a scrapyard. All of these cables, all of these hoses, what they do is they just they snip and they cut and they saw through absolutely everything. But this engine has been removed by an individual who is not a gorilla. It's absolutely amazing. Every single hose and wire is absolutely intact. Look at it all. Look, everything's just been removed with the clips. This is phenomenal. And the most amazing thing is this. So you know right at the start when I said, oh no, look, I cut all of these cables. Well, this has come with them all. So I'm not gonna have to repair any cables whatsoever. And also this turbo, obviously it spins in there. There's absolutely zero play in that turbo whatsoever. And what you're looking at here is a Renault M9R engine. It's a 2 litre inline 4-cylinder diesel engine. Apparently this came out of a van that had just 78,000 miles on it, which is less than the van it's about to go into, which has about 110,000 miles. These engines are fairly decent, they do the job, there's not much more to it than that. But before doing any work with this engine, I thought this would be a fantastic time to clean the engine bay, remove the leaves, collect any bolts, and then with the help of my good friend at Torque Monkey, John, we pushed it inside the workshop. No power steering, is there? Oh yes, John. Yes, John. Go on. Mate. Lovely jubbly. Thank you, John. Now I'm going to be honest with you, the temptation to just grab this engine and then take a run up and just and put it straight in there is very strong. But there are a number of things that I want to do whilst the engine is out, to the engine itself and actually to the van itself. And my first port of call was to see to the driver's side top mount. As you can see, that round metal plate is sitting proud of the suspension turret, which is a great indication that this has gone bad. But what I didn't realise at this stage was quite how damaged the suspension on the front of this van is going to be. Now, one thing that I have worked out since buying this van is that it was last used as a courier van. That means basically that this van has been used and abused. It means long, hard days of stop, start, bumping it up curbs, parking it illegally, getting in and out, heaving yourself off of the steering wheel. Probably accounts for the fact that the seat bolster is as bad as it is. A courier van is probably one of the last types of van you might want. I removed the front shock absorber, which uncovered a whole host of damage. Wow, that's horrendous. So that shock is out, and this is the bearing race that mounts. This all goes up into the top mount. The top mount's actually still in the van. It's kind of stuck wedged up there. But check this bearing out. Firstly, I don't know what the bit's called, the retainer thing, seems to have disintegrated into a million pieces and made its way into the whole race. That's really quite hard to turn, and you can see there's just whole chunks of metal in there where there absolutely should not be any metal. This should just spin really smoothly, should just be full of grease, not whole chunks of metal. Where's that even come from? Wow. Oh, look at that bit sticking out. Look. And then this bit right here is the bit that actually sits up in there, and if I turn it upside down, I don't know if you can see that in there, but that's all chewed up. I mean, like kind of like structurally this thing's still completely sound, but that's all completely chewed up in there where that bearing has just been digging into it. Right here is a new top mount, the actual rubber bit. You see, that's all in great condition, and then in here is a new bearing. So I'm gonna have to take this off, do some jiggery pokery, fit this new one. Uh-oh, that wasn't good. But as I did some further disassembly, I made yet another discovery. So can you see this section just there? This is like the piston, basically. This goes all the way down through the damper, and you can see that bit of thread there is just stripped. It's quite a large chunk, and it turns out that when everything is kind of settled into place, that's about where this nut sits. I mean, it's damaged. It wasn't holding on to any. There's no grip. There's nothing for this to kind of purchase onto. It's just completely stripped out. So it looks like this shock absorber, or the whole right-hand side of the van, has just taken
a lot of abuse. That's really not good. That's probably, I imagine, if I had to guess, I'd say the old bearing was on there. Something's hit it hard. This has obviously forced everything upwards, and it's all acted on that nut, and it's just stripped it all out. And the only thing that I can think to do is to actually replace the entire shock absorber there, because, well, I can't put that back on the van, can I? Well, it's dangerous, more than likely. I did say this was going to be a nightmare, didn't I? I'm going to have to order new shocks. Oh, God. The money, the cost, the aggro. And at the end of this video, I'm going to go through how much all of this has cost. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. I think you might be surprised. So while I waited for the new shocks to arrive, I turned my attention back to the engine. It makes sense to do a load of preventative maintenance with the engine out, where I have amazing access to all of the parts. I'm going to start by changing the timing chain. It feels like there's a million steps to this job. Here's the quick version. Buckle up. You begin by taking photos to remember what on earth everything is supposed to look like when it's back together. Loosen the tensioner, remove the belt, remove the water pump pulley, remove the engine mount, lock the crank pulley using the supplied tool, remove the bolt, remove the pulley, remove the crank seal, aimlessly play with the pulleys because reading the instructions has just gotten deathly boring. Undo the 23 bolts holding the timing cover on, remove the timing cover and stare at it. Lovely. Spin the crank clockwise until its timing mark is just after the 6 o'clock position. The wear cam line is lined up with this boss and the exhaust cam thinger is horizontal. Remove this lonely bolt, screw in the TDC lock tool, rotate the crank until it rests on the lock. Soak the new chain in oil for a minimum of 30 minutes. Fit the cam locking tool, remove the cam pulley bolts, remove the tool, compress the tensioner and put a pin in it. Open the door and close it again. Remove the chain guides, remove the cam sprocket and the chain. Remove the crank sprocket, remove these other two sprockets. Lift the engine up in the air, lay underneath an intensely heavy engine in the sketchiest way possible and remove the sump bolts. Check your life insurance policy, remove the sump, catch the remainder of the old oil, remove the oil pickup, remove the oil pump chain, fit the new chain, refit the pickup, dance brake. Clean out the old gunky oil from the sump, scrape off the old sealant from the sump pan and from the engine mating surface itself, open and close the door again, apply new sealant, refit the sump pan, do the 1 million sump bolts up and torque to spec, clean up the timing cover surface, fit the new guides, fit the new chain and sprocket.
Okay, that is a lot of steps. Let's just take a chill for a second. From that point onwards, to get back everything assembled, it's just how it all came off. A few nuts and bolts here. All good, but I would just like to make a note of something. So I was doing that job with the engine out of the van. Ordinarily, you would do that timing job with the engine in the van with a tiny fraction of the space that I had. Just imagine doing all of those steps with the engine still mounted in. It would be a complete nightmare. So the next time you go to your garage and you ask them to do the timing job, just bear that in mind when you get a quite large, sizable quote back. The parts for this job aren't that much money, it's the labour. And so the final step of this job was to rotate the crank clockwise to make sure it spins freely and everything is a-okay. I also replaced this tensioner because it was making a bad noise. And I know that there's more than a couple of you that are sitting there thinking, whoa, 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 the water pump. You didn't replace the water pump. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm on your side. I'm also sitting here thinking, why didn't that idiot replace the water pump? That idiot did, however, fit a new thermostat and housing. So maybe that kind of makes up for it. It probably doesn't, does it? One thing to note is that I ordered a new auxiliary drive belt, but when I came to fit it, it was too long, which was slightly puzzling at the time. So I discarded it, temporarily fitted the old belt back on. This is important to know.
Next on the list was a new clutch and slave cylinder. It just makes sense to do this with the engine and gearbox out.
And now comes the hard slash irritating slash tedious part of this.
So I've already mentioned that when I took the engine out, I didn't label anything, I didn't keep any bolts to the side and, you know, label the bolts and say that's what they were for, which means that now it's time for the gearbox to be bolted up to the engine. I cannot for the life of me remember which bolts they were. I've got this selection of bolts randomly there that I know are from the van. And then I've got this entire pot of bolts from when I was dismantling the engine. So basically, I've got to work out between these two piles which bolts go all the way around the gearbox into the engine. Okay, I think I might have hit a little bit of a snag here. So the engine itself is actually looking great. The gearbox is on. I've mounted the catalytic converter up. It's missing these two straps, but it is bolted very securely at the turbo and again at there, so it's not going anywhere, so I'm not too worried about that. Everything on there is looking fantastic, but the snag that I've experienced is that I've come to just start prepping the engine bay. I mounted this mount up here, and then we've got this mount here for the gearbox. This is what holds the gearbox and the engine actually in the van. I can only find one of the bolts for this mount here. There should be three. I cannot for the life of me find the other two of these, and I will be amazed if Vauxhall have them. I'm going to give them a call right now and we'll see. If they don't have them, could be in trouble.
Unfortunately, we are busy helping other guests.
Well, this is good.
Unfortunately. Unfortunately.
Why don't you want my business? Okay, so this represents a little bit of a problem. Parts people aren't answering. I've found some bolts on eBay, but they're not going to come for a good few days. And so this is a M12 by 1.5 or something. It's a fine pitch thread. I don't know if you can see that. So it's not like a standard bolt. It's not something that you can just go and find on the shelf in a store locally. I can't progress any further without these bolts. So with those bolts coming tomorrow, I am now going to move back onto the suspension once again. And as you can see here, I have a brand new shock absorber. This right here is the old kind of crusty unit with the damaged thread at the top there. And you can see that the thread on this one is perfecto. So I'm just going to fit these. I'm going to discard basically this entire thing, including that drop link. We do need this thing. Get off, get off. We do need this thing from that old shock that slides over there like that. And it's not just the shock that I've plumped for. I've also gone ahead and purchased a brand new spring. This is the spring that came off. There's nothing particularly wrong or necessarily broken with this spring. You can see a load of the paint has started to flake off. It's getting a little bit corroded under there, but basically because I'm putting new shocks on, just for the extra effort while the shock's off, just put a new spring on it. It's just seems like the right thing to do. I'm replacing pretty much everything else on the suspension. May as well replace the spring. just spend more money. Why not? Why not? And in this box, I have a brand new drop link. So new shock, new spring, new top mounts, new drop links, new lower suspension arms. This is complete new front suspension. And it doesn't actually stop there. You see, I've bought 2 of everything. 2 front shocks, 2 front springs, 2 suspension arms. I am giving this car fully new front suspension. Okay, so why bother doing that? Do you actually need to replace both sides of the suspension at the same time? Not strictly. If you had a broken shock absorber, you can get away with just putting one on. But really, you know, suspension things, it should be done in pairs, and they should certainly be done in pairs when you have a YouTube channel doing car stuff and thousands of people watch your videos, because otherwise I'll just get shouted at in the comments. So we've got all new suspension left and right on this van. Let's get assembling. Okay, and there we have that new shock and spring installed, along with a new drop link. So that's all jolly. Now you'll notice that none of this is actually done up tight. That's not done up, none of this stuff. The drop link itself isn't done up tight. And if we come up around here, you can also see that the top mount there is also not done up tight. And the reason for that is because I'm still going to have to take all of this down here off again when it comes to installing the drive shaft back in once the engine and gearbox are in. So at that stage, once the engine and gearbox back in, the drive shafts are all fitted up, that's when I'm going to come around and then do these up properly, torque them up, and everything will be nice. But now what I've got to do is basically just the exact same on this passenger side. So I'm just going to jump ahead, do that. So now you can see all of that lovely new suspension is in place. Like the other side, everything is still loose. All the bolts are still loose. Doesn't matter, it's all being held in just enough for now. And it was just as well that I did do this other side, because the top mount bearing was also destroyed on this side. I next turned my attention to removing the wiring loom. It starts here at the battery, winds itself down underneath the van, and then kind of terminates in the main loom and in the fuse box that you can see here. Removing it really was just a matter of undoing a few bolts and kind of just pulling it out. Now we are very, very close to having this engine and gearbox go back in the van. But a second ago, I just had a thought. I thought, definitely check to see if the new bolts that I've just ordered to actually mount this gearbox fit. And so here's one of the bolts that fits into that hole, lovely. It also fits in that mount there, lovely. That's all good. And then the third one is this one. And I started to screw it in and it comes to a stop, grinds to a halt there. And I was like, oh, what on earth now? And basically what it looks like is that it's very difficult for you to see. You might be able to see it in there actually. See, there's a load of metal in there. Well, it looks as though this has had a thread repair. So it looks like the thread in here has largely stripped out, and someone has repaired it at some point with a helicoil. And a helicoil it's a thread repair kit. It kind of inserts a new thread in there. But that thread repair now looks like it's broken. So it looks as though this needs thread repairing again. Now, like so many of the jobs you see me do on this channel, I have never done a thread repair job before, but there's nothing better than rolling up your sleeves and just jumping in head first. So I vacuumed out all of the loose metal shards, read the instructions on the thread repair kit, drilled the hole out, vacuumed again. Then I cut a new thread for the coil using the supplied tool, then screwed in the new thread, again using the supplied tool, then hammered off the tang with, you guessed it, the supplied tool. Okay, moment of truth, new bolt, please work. Check that out, that's cool. Wow. So I can now repair the threads on things. Amazing. New skill unlocked. You see, that's the thing, you don't always have to work on, you know, the fanciest of machinery, you know, Ferraris and, I don't know, M5s and 3s and stuff. That stuff, obviously it's cool, but when you're learning, when you're like me and you're just learning, everything can be interesting because I've never had to do that job before, and now I've done it. It was on a Vivaro van, it matters not. I've picked up a new skill that's now transferable. It's just, this is great. Okay, development. It's now much later in the day. I haven't done anything else because a new project car just turned up and then distracted me for hours. Not only that, but a slot for an MOT. An MOT, if you're from outside the UK, is our annual government roadworthiness inspection. A slot, the appointments for an MOT are rare as hen's teeth. A slot has just opened up with my guy here for tomorrow. Can I get this done by tomorrow? Bearing in mind, it's currently almost 10 past 5. By myself? No. But I have enlisted the help of Tim from Talk Monkey, who regular viewers will recognise. He has agreed to come in and help me this evening, get this engine in, get everything buttoned up, to give us the best shot of getting this to its appointment tomorrow. Tim is a professional mechanic and knows his stuff, and he's going to be an absolute asset. He's going to come over in a minute, and we're just going to plow ahead and get this done. And what's great as well is because he really knows what he's doing, he's going to be able to look over all of my work and probably just make fun of it. So he actually just came over and he said, it would be best if we start doing the suspension arms before the engine in because of the way they go. So it's just very handy having a Tim around. I'd have left that until the end and struggled with it. This one's actually all right, this ain't bad. It was just the other one's gone, I think, and
I know it was one of them.
yeah, do them in pairs and all that. Go on, show us your skills. See, I'm at the stage where I always think I'm 1 second away from just breaking everything.
Oh, do you know what? In this job, half the time you are.
Oh.
You are literally a second away from pure catastrophe. But
That's what I like to hear. So just took this driver's side lower arm out. Well, a ball joint should not make that noise, that's for sure. You can see this one's kind of in. We're leaving it like that because the drive shafts have got to go back in. Just going to get this next arm in and then crack on. Check this out, look, potential project.
yeah.
You're going to wet yourself.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah. Would that not be one of the coolest things? It's not. I don't think it's as bad as you think it is.
No, potentially not.
No, but you got to push yourself, haven't you?
Yeah.
You got to. There comes a point where you've got to stop doing Vivaro vans and move into the big leagues. Hey?
How much of it will you go?
Tim, help! You know what? I might have to hire someone because working two of you at the same time is just So Tim's just noticed something major. This is why it's so good having someone experienced around. Remember earlier on when that new auxiliary drive belt that I bought didn't fit, it was too long, and I was confused. Well, major oversight on my part. Tim was just staring at the engine and he was like, hang on a minute, your van's got aircon. Yeah, no? I was like, yeah. Well, this hasn't got an air conditioning compressor on it. This has obviously come out of a van without aircon. So this whole setup's different. Where's that mount gone? So this is the mount off of the old engine. This goes on there like that, and all the accessories mount to it, or like that, sorry. The alternator is actually down there. The power steering pump gets relocated up here. So this has to go on here for everything to line up properly. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to fit the engine, and then once the engine is in, then we'll take all of this off, put this plate on to here, get everything rejigged around, and then use the air conditioning compressor that was on the van, which should still be good, I'm hoping, and then that should see to that. But yeah, just kind of massive oversight on my part.
It was time to stop gassing and get motoring because evening was quickly turning into night, and it was time to get the engine and gearbox mounted into the van. We did a couple of sense checks to make sure everything was in place ready to receive it, and then we simply wheeled it in. We did a load of jiggery pokery to make sure that the mounts were lined up, put the bolts in, and then basically just dropped the engine crane to admire our handiwork. And then we just got to it. We reconnected all of the hoses, wires, nuts, bolts, connectors, gear shift cables, fuel lines, fuses, relays. We just powered on. We were a force for mankind. I could literally feel the fabric of space-time bending to our will. Absolutely nothing could stop us, apart from a doner kebab.
It's even better when it tastes of really old, manky 5W40.
Oh yeah, you can't beat it. You can't beat it.
You know what I mean? Like sod the garlic dip.
Tim swapped over the accessory bracket and fitted the old AC compressor. We fitted the crash bar, radiator, big plastic thing that houses the intercooler, bled the fuel system, connected the right hand drive shaft and suspension arm, connected the exhaust, fitted a new oil filter, and I filled the engine with fresh oil. Thanks for reminding me. And then we were finally ready for the main event, and I really, really hope this replacement engine is good and I haven't been scammed. After all, it was ridiculously cheap.
I just connected all of the battery terminals up again. We put the key in and there were lights on the dash and it's making electrical noises. I think the only thing for it now is to actually turn the key and see if this old girl starts up.
Because there's no coolant and no power steering fluid in it.
Yeah, can't run it long. Yeah, no coolant, no power steering fluid, but we can try and start it. It's got all the oil in it. We definitely put oil in?
Yes.
Yeah. I did it.
Oh, make sure it's in neutral.
Make sure it's in neutral. Make sure it's in neutral. Make sure it's in neutral. It wasn't in neutral, but it is now in neutral. Right, ready?
Yep.
Please do something. Please, please, please. Oh. Well done, mate.
What about engine light?
There is an engine light. It says check injection.
Yeah, probably because of all the issues before, they will need clearing.
Probably just clear it out.
More than light. Well, yeah, that'd be better.
It was saying check injection when this was bad, when I very first got it. What's that squeaking noise?
So auxiliary belt. That, I can't believe that. And that actually started up quite like that. I'm very surprised. No oil spewing out either.
What's that, the belt?
Just belt. Yeah. You can't believe that. For that, all that time being out, took it a little bit privately and it started up inside out.
Yeah. Also, I had absolutely no idea if this engine was any good or not.
Right.
I literally just bought it off some geezer on eBay.
Proven not every geezer on eBay
Is, yeah, exactly. And it is 11 PM. Not too bad. And so I would like to take this moment to properly thank TalkMonkey, not only for Tim helping me get the engine back in here, but behind the scenes, I'm always pestering Tim with questions about how things work, what I should do here. Not only that, but John and Miriam from TalkMonkey, the owners, they're always just offering to help source parts, to help me with this service, help me with that. Guys, if you're watching, I honestly can't thank you enough. So I can't recommend TalkMonkey's services highly enough. If you're in the Essex area and you've got a problem with your car, honestly, I urge you to take it to those guys. But one thing that you need to know is that they are really well known for their minis. R53, R56 minis. People come from all over the country to have their cars worked on by Tim. So if you've got a mini in particular, I would definitely take it to TalkMonkey. That's their thing. And they're not paying me to say this or anything like that. I'm just trying to give credit where credit is due. Those guys are absolutely fantastic, and thank you for helping me. Right, so it is the next day, and as I'm sure you can see, I've been busy. I got in early in the morning, and the first task was to fill the power steering with fluid and bleed the system. I fitted a new track rod end, a new drive belt. Tim fitted a new CV boot to the left-hand drive shaft. I drained the old gearbox oil and refilled it with fresh stuff. Torqued all the suspension nuts and bolts to spec, and I fitted new discs and pads all round. The right rear corner ended up needing a new caliper because the old one was seized and destroyed. I filled the engine with coolant and bled the system, checked the oil level, all good, fitted the remaining body panels, cleared the error codes in the ECU, pressure bled the brakes and the clutch, and then it was time to see if the old girl could move under her own power. Okay, as I'm sure you can see, the van is now down on the ground. I'm going to try and drive it. I've got my appointment in a minute. I just want to see if this thing drives. I have been rushing, which isn't ideal. You never want to rush, but if this passes its MOT, I'll be absolutely amazed. And I don't know what it does, but I might even still be getting ahead of myself there, talking about the test, because I need to see if this thing actually drives. Why is the seat so high? How does that go down? Okay. Right, for the first time in my ownership, will this van drive? Oh, that feels good. We've got brakes. We've got brakes. Oh my word, God, it's taking so long. Oh, the power steering doesn't feel good. Let's just get this out of here. Oh yes. Feels good. Come on, might not be something really sexy like a Ferrari or a Rolls Royce. It is only a Vivaro van. It doesn't mean it's any less satisfying when all of your hard work pays off. Can you see the mess in here? This is unbelievable. I need to clean this up. What did I come here to do? Power steering fluid. Right, that's a lot better. Let's just drive it around the block here. This is all private road, so I can. Just to see, well, just to make sure nothing falls off of it and that, I suppose. Oh, left the side door open. I mean, it drives. It drives. The bumper was out. It drives. It's yeah, I don't know. The engine light's back on again, so maybe I should just try clearing that. But other than that, I'm just going to put this in for its inspection now, and we'll see how it does. And we'll check back in a bit after I've cleaned the workshop. So as expected, it did fail. This is the list, and it looks way worse than it is. Luckily, everything with the engine is all good. There's no leaks. The emissions are all good. That's all fantastic news. This list isn't too scary whatsoever. It is now actually the next day. I have ordered and received a load of parts.
and I'm just going to get through this list.
The first place to start was with the following. Engine malfunction indicator lamp inoperative or indicates a malfunction. I rescanned the van and found it was throwing an error code for the MAF sensor. This is probably because the MAF is from the old engine, and I threw this in the back of the van and I imagine it just got damaged. I replaced it with a new one, cleared the codes, and the engine light stayed off. Power steering malfunction and power steering fluid level below minimum. The power steering pump was moaning and groaning, and I fixed this by simply adding yet more power steering fluid and bleeding the system by turning the wheels all the way left and then all the way right a few times. Brake pedal has insufficient reserve travel. I got the van back on the lift, took the wheels off and simply rebled the brakes. There's probably some trapped air in the lines. Near side track rod end ball joint has excessive play, so I replaced the near side track rod end. And that's it. Offside front flexible brake pipe mounting insecure. This just needed clipping in. Spare wheel carrier insecure. I fixed this issue in the most ingenious way. I removed it and then just didn't reinstall it. Hopefully I don't get a puncture. Not that this spare wheel is legal in any way, shape or form. Offside rear coil spring fractured or broken. This spring is actually missing a couple of rungs on it, and replacing it was one of the easiest jobs I've ever done. You undo the strut bolts, lower the rear axle, the springs just pop out. Installation is the reverse. You'll note I fitted new springs in pairs, not only to keep the internet happy, but to satisfy my OCD, as I don't want to be driving down the road and feel off kilter in my head like this. All four wheels have a slight bind. The tester John told me this is probably because the discs and pads are brand new and haven't bedded in, so my solution was a quick spin up and down the driveway, doing a load of braking. The off-site headlight is discoloured. This isn't actually on the report, but it was bugging me, so I gave it a quick polish and it came up great. Offside front position lamp not working. You can see here that this bulb is just randomly flashing. Not only that, but for some reason the bulb is blue and it just looks terrible. I replaced these bulbs on both sides, and while I was in there I also replaced both indicator bulbs to address the other failure items: near side front direction indicator incorrect colour and offside front direction indicator slightly discoloured. Next up was hazard warning switch inoperative. I bought a new hazard switch from Amazon. Did the trick lovely. Supplementary restraint system warning lamp indicates a fault. I wiggled the driver's seatbelt connector and this light went out. Easy. I replaced the air filter. And the cabin filter. And finally, the old girl is ready for her retest. Please tell me you've passed after all of this work and expense.
And I am very pleased to say that this old girl passed. And she didn't just scrape through the test either. She got a completely clean bill of health. No advisories whatsoever. I'm pretty pleased with that result, to be honest. I did also clean it. Well, I mean, I cleaned the cabin and then I took it to get washed on the outside, only because it started raining outside. You probably can't tell because I have used it and the weather is atrocious at the minute, so it just kind of got instantly dirty again. Right, so let's talk money. I've just costed up everything, including the price of the van, Copart fees, the whole works, the engine, all of the parts. I mean, some of the parts I've had to get: the van, engine, van hire, front shocks, front suspension arms, front springs, drop links, discs and pads all round, rear springs, air filter, cabin filter, engine oil. The list goes on. The total amount of money that I've spent on everything is £2,781. I actually think that's not too bad, if I'm completely honest with you, even with, you know, the crazy Copart fees and delivery. You can get one of these, you know, in pretty good working condition for £3,000, but it's not going to have all of the suspension rebuilt, and it's not going to have an engine with just 78,000 miles on it, more than likely. So, you know, if you fancy watching the video where I originally took the engine out of this van and stripped it down, you can watch that
right here. I'll see you soon.